right, section 2 from chapter 2 is about ancient Egyptian civilization. And honestly, most of chapter 2, you probably know Egyptian history the most, just because it was well recorded, and so people study ancient Egyptians quite a bit in several different classes and several different grades. Egyptian society was called the Gift of the Nile because, of course, the Nile River was so important for its history. So the Nile River, which is 4,100 miles long, begins in more of the center of Africa, and it flows north and it empties out into the Mediterranean Sea. So it splits into this triangular territory. You can see up here the Nile Delta, which is also called Lower Egypt. And then upstream, you can see here is Upper Egypt, which is again going to be higher than the Lower Egypt, because the Lower Egypt is draining into the Mediterranean Sea, so it's more at sea level. There are lots of important cities. You can see, of course, here Giza and Cairo, and then, of course, all the way down you have cities, and it even continues further south. Every year, the Nile River floods, and the rains from Central Africa rise, cause the water to rise, and then, of course, it comes downstream, and as it does so, it takes dirt and mud, and it deposits it along the banks of the Nile River, and those fertile mud deposits are called the Black Land, and then the other land is called the Red Land. And again, if it wasn't for this, nobody could really live in Egypt because, of course, it's in the middle of the Sahara Desert. So because of the yearly flooding, they had surpluses of food in Egypt, and that's part of the reason why Egypt could become so prosperous. And also, it was a good access point. So you could travel, you could trade, you could send communications out. So this is different than Mesopotamia that you read about in section 1. Yes, they had the Tigris and Euphrates River, but it really didn't connect it to, the Mediterranean or the rest of the continent. Egypt was also protected by a lot of natural barriers, and so there were deserts both to the east and west of where ancient Egypt developed, and then to the east you have the Red Sea. In the south on the Nile River you have the cataracts or the rapids, and of course that made traveling the Nile right there very difficult. And then to the north you of course have the Mediterranean Sea, and all of this made Egypt very secure, and that regularity of the flooding and having a surplus of food made Egypt's history last a very long time. All right, so religion. Like every other ancient civilization, Egypt was polytheistic, and they had several gods and goddesses, and most of those gods and goddesses were associated with sun and land, which of course that was most of their existence. So they have several gods that are sun gods, and then other ones tended to be more land gods and played a significant role in their reincarnation and so forth. All right, so sun gods. Atum is the human form of the sun god, and Re is the human body with the falcon head, as you can see off to the right. So again, rulers even took the title of Re because, again, the sun god was very important to them being in Egypt. Land and river gods are like Osiris and Isis. So Osiris brought this civilization to Egypt, supposedly, and fought with his brother, Seth, who ended up killing him and cutting his body into many parts, and he threw the body parts into the Nile. Well, little did Seth know that Isis, his wife, found those body parts, put them back together, and had this power to bring him back to life. If you've seen like the movie Mummy, at the beginning, this occurs in that particular movie. So Isis is considered to be the goddess of motherhood, who was married and was the wife as well. Isis was also the wife sister of Osiris. All right, so resurrection was the symbol of Osiris that we just mentioned. They place dead in the tombs, and then, like, for example, the kings, of course, were put in the pyramids, and they were given the name Osiris, and by this magical process, they would be reborn again. And so when we talk about embalming and mummification, it was important because they believe that, again, you will be reborn or resurrected, and so your body needs to be well preserved. So the flooding is a symbol of Osiris's body coming together from, Isis doing that, which represents spring and new life. All right. So Egyptian history is different than other ancient civilizations because they only experts divided into 3 divisions, old, middle, and new kingdoms. And so because Egyptian history was so long and stable, it was easy to divide this. Now, in 3100 BC, the Egyptian ruler of Menes united Upper and Lower Egypt that we mentioned in earlier on those maps, and created this first Egyptian dynasty. And the term dynasty just means it's a type of government that is ruled by a family, and so it's passed on to other family members. Now, Chinese history also did this, but they took it a little bit further and they marked history based on the dynasties. Egyptians didn't do that. They marked it as Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. So again, as you can kind of see here, the Old Kingdom, okay, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. So you can see those in their timeline. All right, so the Old Kingdom, which lasted from 2700 BC to 220 BC, the Egyptian kings were pharaohs, and the word pharaoh, oddly enough, means great house or palace, but of course the pharaoh was the Egyptian ruler or Egyptian king, and these rulers possessed all of the power. So, there wasn't a Senate or a Congress or other people to help them. Of course, the priests worked hand in hand with the pharaoh, but that was it. Now, family members would help, specifically wives or, of course, heirs to the throne. The economic system, the government system in Egypt had a bureaucracy, which is this large administration organization that have lots of officials and procedures that those officials need to do. So it's not like the pharaoh did everything. Of course, he delegated some of his work. Later, they divided Egypt into 42 provinces, and they were all run by an individual governor who reported back to the pharaoh. All right, the pyramids were constructed during the Old Kingdom. So the City of the Dead was part of this larger complex. So the pyramids were part of this complex for buildings for the dead. So, of course, the pyramid was just for the pharaoh and his queen. There were smaller pyramids for other family members, sons, people that took over after the pharaoh, and again, wives, other wives, because they could have more than one. But the mastabas, the picture off to the right there, were these rectangular structures. So they weren't pyramids. They had these flat roofs, and they were tombs for all of those officials that we just talked about in that bureaucracy, to help the pharaoh. So they had their own burial location, and of course it wasn't as elaborate as the pharaoh and his wife. All right, the tombs. Each tomb was typically stocked with any supplies because remember, they believed in life after death. So what things did these pharaohs need after they were resurrected? Now, the other part of this whole resurrection was that Egyptians believed that there were two bodies: your physical body, okay, which they mummified and embalmed and took very good care of to bury, and the spiritual body, which was the Ka. And if they were going to be resurrected, they needed the spirit inside of this well-preserved body. And so that was a very important component. All right, so mummification. The term mummification is not wrapping them in white linen. That's part of it. But of course, that's what we think of, thinking of Halloween and so forth. It's a process of slowly drying a dead body. And the point is to prevent it from rotting because, again, you wanted this body to be well preserved so that they could be resurrected, right? So they wanted to do this. So there was it was a 70-day process. And in the 70 days, they removed the organs and they put most of them in jars and then put the jars in the tomb. And that was because, again, they would need those things. Now, they didn't feel that they needed the brain because that wasn't part of the rebirth. They just needed all the other things. And so they removed the brain through the nose with what I would call like a knitting needle. And they jammed it up their nose and pulled it out piece by piece. And they kind of disregarded it because it was not necessary. They covered the corpse with salt, which of course absorbs any of the liquids in the body. Then your body would kind of collapse because it didn't have any water or organs. And so to pump it back up to its normal size, they filled the body with some spices and strips of linen, because linen is a material that is kind of moisture wicking. And then they would place this lifelike mask on the head and shoulders, and then they were taken in a coffin. And a lot of times, pharaohs would have several sarcophaguses or coffins, one inside of the other, and one would get bigger going out. And then, of course, that coffin or coffins would be taken to the tomb and buried in the pyramid. So again, this just shows you like the sarcophagus. Here's the first coffin, okay? And then there's this mask-like thing on the head and the shoulders. And of course, here is a typical mummified remains. All right, so pyramids were, again, built for a burial place for the pharaohs. And the most significant and largest one was the Great Pyramid, which was constructed for the king or pharaoh Khufu. It was constructed in Giza, and it was built about 2540 BC. It takes up about 13 acres, and each side of the base is about 756 feet long. Now, each side also faces one of the cardinal directions. So one side faces directly north, east, south, and west. So it's not cockeyed and kind of northwest, facing northwest or southeast. It's very, structured to the north, south, east, west cardinal directions. When it was completely constructed, it was 481 feet high. It took 20 years to construct and over 100,000 slaves to build. They use a lot of geometry because you have to take some of these, 15-ton limestone blocks, up, maybe not to the very top because the top ones were smaller, but they had to do that with these long ramps, and they rolled these large limestone blocks on logs and rolled them up each layer. So each block, it was bigger at the bottom, the blocks were bigger, and of course it got smaller to give the pyramid shape. And then there was a smooth limestone surface on the outside. And again, they were just set on top of each other. There was no mortar or anything put together on that. The Great Pyramid is still standing, and of course it is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And so you can see the big one in the middle is the Great Pyramid, and then the smaller 2 on the outside were for Khufu's sons. And then the smaller ones beyond that were for wives or other family members. Now, the Sphinx is right outside of the Great Pyramid, and supposedly the Sphinx is this combination of a lion and a human, and it's Khafre's head, and it's supposed to come alive to protect King Khufu.